What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Social Club, where everyone has a voice, and welcome to the Social Club football event. 31 days, 31 videos. All August long, we're bringing you daily football content, from the NFL to college football and everything in between. Expect videos on Heisman frontrunners, NFL MVPs, bold predictions, hot takes, and more as we gear up for the new season. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a day of football content. We're building more than just content. We're building a community. So make sure to comment your thoughts below every video and let your voice be heard. Other than that, go ahead and pull up a chair, grab a plate, and let's talk football. Welcome to week one of the college football season. We finally made it. And with that being said, we have a monster of a game coming up with Ohio State versus Texas. Now, before I give you my actual take on who I think is going to win, I want to just roll right into the dynamics of the team this year, who are the new pieces, who departed, things like that nature, and then I'll roll into who I think is going to win and then why. Now, there's no secret between Ohio State and Texas. These were two of the most talented teams last year. So as you would imagine, a lot of the team either vacated or just went straight to the draft and got drafted into the NFL. Now, this is a very long list, and I don't want to take the time to go through every single person on both sides of the ball, but we all understand the big names like Matthew Golden for Texas, of course, and then for Ohio State, guys like Jack Sawyer, the defensive end, guys like Emeka Egbuka getting drafted. So we understand that these are similar teams, but still a lot of talent that has moved on into the league or just straight out graduated. But with that being said, these teams are still two of the most talented teams in college football. I mean, not much has really changed. I think where I want to start with this, I want to start with the coaching staff. I think that's really going to be one of the biggest question marks going into this game. Now, this kind of flew under the radar, but what a lot of people don't, or maybe just finding out here, is that, Ohio State did lose their starting DC, which is a really big story, and Jim Knowles. Now he's coaching for Penn State, which I think is kind of interesting that he would stay in the Big Ten. I don't know. That might be treason. Personally, but I get it, got following the money. And then the bigger story that everyone knows, Chip Kelly has moved on, so he's also not at Ohio State. Now, with that being said, it's not like Ohio State is now lacking talent in the coaching position. Now, what a lot of people don't know about Chip Kelly is that he was labeled as the offensive coordinator. However, he was more of a co-offensive coordinator. So with the new guy that they promoted up, and Brian Hartline, what a lot of people don't know is that Brian Hartline was a co-offensive coordinator with Chip Kelly. So there's a lot of dual responsibilities that they both have. So this isn't just like some random guy that they just decided to promote up. He was an integral part of their offense last year and what got him to a national championship. And now he's getting the full official title of being the OC. And then on the defensive side, a very familiar name in Matt Patricia. They brought him on. And again, anytime you bring in a guy with NFL experience, and not just NFL experience, but NFL Super Bowl coaching experience, that's always a big thing. And that's your DC. Now, I think the interesting thing with that is, along with Matt Patricia, also Tim Walton is a co-defensive coordinator, which I guess that's just a thing. I've never really heard of that until I started looking into both of these teams. But yeah, there's technically two defensive coordinators for Ohio State, which is interesting. But I only say that to say, I don't think in terms of coaching and offensive play and defensive play, I don't think any of that is really going to change for Ohio State, especially when you think of the talent aspect. I mean, they're just way too over talented for them to really take a step back. Also, I know a lot of people like Chip Kelly, but I have to be the one to say this. Ohio State has had a good offense since the year 2000. So the idea that one guy is really the difference maker on the coaching staff for them having a good offense and not is just kind of ridiculous, to be honest. But going into Texas, the more important thing, I guess, a key factor to think about going forward is Texas retained their OC and DC, long-standing guys. Kyle Flood is their offensive coordinator, and then their defensive coordinator, Peter Oh, God. Peter Kwiatkowski. Kwiatkowski. Yeah, you guys know. And funny enough, he's also a co-defensive coordinator with Johnny Nansen. So that's interesting. Again, I've never heard of this until I've looked into it. But these are long-standing guys. They've been around. This isn't brand new. It's very familiar faces. So Texas, in terms of coaching staff, they definitely will have a lot more cohesion going into this game. I don't think it'd be too much of a difference, but it is something to note if you're thinking about betting on the game or who do you like better than the other. I think things like that do matter, especially for a week one game. But other than that, now let's move on to the dynamics of the team. Now, for starters, Texas is set to have probably the best defense in college football again. At least arguably they were the best last year for sure. But and more importantly, their defensive line. I mean, Colin Simmons, good luck. Good luck. Oh, good God. I mean, he's the real deal for sure. And then, of course, everyone's raving about Anthony Hill Jr. and just really all across the board. I mean, even when you look at their secondary and who they have, Michael Taft is another superstar on that team, but just all across the board, they got stars all over there. I think Texas defense is their best attribute going into this year. And then looking at their offense, there's a big name, but before we get to the big name, obviously you have their running back core is actually coming back. It's actually pretty well set. And now they did lose Jaden Blue to the draft. Bringing back Winsner and Baxter as your dual backs, and then your receiver core, Wingo, big name that's coming out, and then, of course, the big name that everyone's talking about, in Arch Manning. He's set to have a phenomenal year. At least he has the talent around him to have a phenomenal year. And then moving on to Ohio State side. Now, Ohio State is no slouch, and their offense again is poised to be the best offense in the country. Definitely one of the best receiving cores in the country. I mean, having guys like Jeremiah Smith, of course, but Brandon Illis, Carnell Tate, people like that. And then, of course, they hit the transfer portal and picked up some guys. Their new running back that came out of West Virginia. He's looking to be a stud. And then their two back. I forgot their RB2. I believe his name was Peoples. Something like that. Their offense is solid. They're not going anywhere. And then, of course, their defense. You might have the best corner in the nation, and Caleb Downs, if not at least a top 5 corner, top defensive guy going into the draft if he declares this year. I mean, he's obviously the real deal. But again, it's just talent all around. You can't really go wrong with either teams. But more importantly, the biggest thing, or the biggest question mark you have to decide, is Julian Sayin. Brand new guy, not a lot of people know about him, but he actually was drafted. He actually committed to Alabama, but he ended up transferring to Ohio State because the year he committed, that was the same year Nick Saban retired. So then figured he'd make that switch to Ohio State. He does have some experience, but more importantly, and what a lot of people are missing, is he's a former 5-star recruit. And if I'm right, I believe he was the number 1 QB in this class coming out. And from what I've seen, not enough people are talking about Julian Sayin. I don't know until I see it, but I just need to be the one to say it. He's going to be a lot better than what people are thinking. For people who think that Ohio State lost their luck on QB play, I think this kid's going to be better than Will Howard, which is crazy to say. But what we thought about Will Howard before the playoff games, and then what happened after, all credit to Will Howard. But I think this Julian Sayin kid is going to be phenomenal, and time will really tell. Now the biggest question, of course, is who do I have winning and why? Well, I'm wearing this shirt for a reason. So obviously I have Ohio State winning. And my reason why is actually pretty straightforward. Most important thing, home field advantage really does matter. In one aspect, I think Texas is under a lot of pressure to perform, especially with Arch Manning and all the hype that he has received. But that pressure, along with being in the away game, along with it being week one, I think it's going to be very hard for them in the late part, in the fourth quarter. If they end up being down, I think it's going to be very hard for them to lead a game-winning drive in that respect. And just some other things to add that I find that's important when assessing these teams. You know, what you have to think about it is the most important thing for Ohio State is they need to stretch the field with this receiving core. Again, I think it's one of the best receiving cores in football. I think they will be able to stretch the field. And from a talent-wise, I actually think Ohio State receiver core has the edge over the Texas secondary in terms of coverage and what they have to do. I mean, just with Jeremiah Smith alone, you're going to have to hang in too high safety the entire game. No question. If you leave him on an island, put him one-on-one, he's going to burn you bad. And you don't want that. So you're going to have to stay in too high the whole time. And honestly, I think their game plan is they're going to rely on their D-line to really just rush 4. But if they get in the situation where 4 really can't get home and sack Julian Sayin, and they have to bring more guys and more pressure, I think Julian Sayin as a passer, just as a straight passer, and for how talented the receiver core is, I think they're going to tear them apart. Now, one thing to note, when I say tear them apart, in no way am I saying that this is going to be a shootout. I don't think that at all. When it comes to week one matchups, now you have week one matchup with 2 new QBs, 2 great defenses, right? Very high, everything that's going on. It actually favors defensive performances a lot better. One of the reasons why is that if anyone's ever played football, you know that when it comes to week one, you have essentially a month to a month and a half to prepare for that week one opponent, along with just getting in shape and getting ready for the season. So that favors defenses 100%. And then another thing is that week one, most of the time you don't have your full offense installed. It actually takes until about week 2 to 3, maybe even 4, for your full offense to actually be installed into your system. A lot of it has to do with timing and just the complexity of college football offenses. So the lack of maybe plays and formations and things that you could have will also lead to what your performance is going to be from an offensive standpoint, which I also think favors the defense, of course. And then, like I said before, 2 QBs truly getting their hands on the wheel of this team for the first time. I don't think there's going to be a lot of mistakes. However, I don't think either QB is going to go for 5 touchdowns and 500 yards or anything of that nature. I think it's going to be very grueling, very defensive style play. I don't think a team scores over 24 points, honestly. So if you're an under guy, definitely look for the under. Now, I gave my spiel on Ohio State. Let me make sure I show Texas some love. Let's be clear. Texas has all the talent in the world to actually win this game. Now, I do want to make that clear. It's going to be a very close game. No team is going to blow out the other, or at least I would be very surprised if that did happen. The biggest thing for Texas, I would say, is you do have the talent. I think the biggest thing really comes down to balance. If you really want to beat Ohio State, especially at Ohio, you're going to have to run the ball. And those guys are going to have to average 5 to 6 yards a carry if you're going to beat Ohio at Ohio. So I think it's tough. They have the talent to do it. I just don't know. I think it's just going to be a huge chess match. And I think just with the ability of being at home, the ability to having such a dominant receiver core, which I think they actually are going to be, I think it's going to favor Julian Sayin a little bit more than Arch Manning. Now, again, I want to show love to Arch Manning. I have nothing against the kid. I think he's going to do great. And honestly, his legs are going to be a big deciding factor too on maintaining drives. But early on, or really just through the stretch of the game, I really think it's just going to come down to, can Texas consistently run the football in Ohio State? And then on the other end, can Ohio State truly stretch the field with this receiver core? One or the other. And the downfall of either team is really going to come down to that when we look back at it. But that's who I have. I have Ohio State, and then I will also have the under, if that matters to you guys. But Ohio State for sure. That's who I see. I would say for you guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Who do you think is going to win in this game? Who do you have? What did I miss? You know, there's so much stuff you can decipher from these teams. I mean, I didn't even go that deep into Texas's defense, but it's still great. It's phenomenal defense. Probably the best front seven in college football. But you guys give me your thoughts. I want to hear your propaganda takes. I want to hear my Columbus people. I want to hear my Austin people in the chat. But other than that, take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.